Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And today we are talking to Dan Graham of the Vegan Organic Network. And Dan has been doing this for 25 years. My God, Dan.
I haven't been doing it for exactly 25 years. I joined the team around about 2014,
Okay.
it was a lot of other people have done all the hard work and the groundwork. A number
Okay.
of vegans, set up the organization before. I've sort of
So,
always been involved a little bit from the beginning, but mainly got involved in about 2014.
okay.
Um,
So, how did it start? I know the Vegan Organic Network started in 1996, correct?
1996. I think basically what it was that after the Second World War, that was when the Soil Association and organic groups started to come around,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that the what we call conventional agriculture, which is actually relatively new, which was a byproduct of Haber Bosch and nitrogen fixing, which was used in the First and Second World Wars to make bombs, and also they worked out they could use the nitrogen as fertilizer. So yeah, there was. I mean, that's the history of our so-called conventional food, was bombs, and also pesticides came from Cyclone B, which was also used in the Second World War in the concentration camps. So our history of pesticides and chemicals to grow our foods isn't very nice. And I think after the Second World War, a group of people got together and realized that, wanted to say that, we can feed ourselves using only organic methods, which we've been doing for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the organic movement got started. I think in the UK now, the organic movement is maybe, I think it's about 2 or 3% of the market of food that's produced in the UK and consumed. And then I think what happened was that the vegans realized that actually, well, probably a long time before this, realized that a lot of the food, unless you grew it yourself, couldn't be guaranteed to be free from animal remains. So a lot of the food that we grow at the moment, we've got a local vegan shop, which is all organic. Everything in it is vegan. I think it's the biggest vegan supermarket in the UK. And I think everybody walks into that supermarket thinking that all the food there is vegan, but actually your carrots and your onions and your apples have been grown with slaughterhouse byproducts, fish, blood, bone. Um, so a bunch of vegans got together, have probably been growing veganically without calling it, because I mean there's various terms which have come about: veganic, stock free, vegan organic, which basically means grown without using any animal inputs. Yeah, so these bunch of vegans got together and formed the Vegan Organic Network. And we've had some quite dedicated people. There was Ian Tolhurst and Jenny Hall wrote a book, Growing Green, which was the basics of the first stock-free veganic standards, which we at the Vegan Organic Network are standards. If a farm wants to get certified as stock-free organic, they can go through the Soil Association, who do a standard organic certification, and then they do a further certification. They go through our processes, and a farm can be certified as stock-free.
Right. So that started in 1996.
That started in 1996. Yeah.
And go ahead.
Go on, carry on.
So my question was, it started to basically help people grow food in a vegan organic way. and to propagate the ideas, or was it a network from the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the first name of the Vegan Organic Network was Vohan, which was the Vegan Organic Horticultural Agricultural Network. Yeah, so the network idea and working
Mm.
internationally and the whole and sharing information has been part of the ethos from the start.
Okay. Okay. So is it mainly in the UK or is it worldwide now?
Well, we have our magazine, which is called Growing Green International, and we have contributors from all over the world. And there's different organizations all over the world. There's now a map of all the vegan farms in North America. There's a
Mhm.
map of all the vegan farms in Europe. So in America, we work with the what they called the Veganic Agricultural Network. We work with them in North America, and in Europe there's Biocyclic.
Mhm.
Um, so we're all working to the same, and we're working alongside vegans as well, and all to the same ends, really, because ultimately, if we're going to move towards a vegan world, we need vegan food. And unfortunately, going vegan is very easy, but unless you live near a vegan farm, it's difficult to guarantee your food hasn't been grown with dead animals, unfortunately.
Right, right, right. So tell us about the Save Our Wildlife Awards this, that you want to promote now.
I think this is sort of part of the whole sort of quandary which we're in, where we're trying to communicate a very sort of simple message, not to eat animals and to grow our food in a way which is good for the soil, the land, the sea, the rivers, the people, and the animals, which you think people would want to do. So I think in 2018 there was a bunch of scientists that did some studies which were published in a number of scientific journals, which showed that of all the mammals on Earth, only 4% are wildlife. 60% of all. So I think out of all the mammals on Earth, I think there's about I think it's about 2,500 different mammals, and then there's only 4% of all the mammals are wildlife. Then 60% of all the mammals are farm animals, which consist of half a dozen animals. So and it's ridiculous. Then 36% of mammals are human beings. So
Mhm.
humans and their food are taking up 96% of the biomass. And I thought this was quite an easy statistic to digest. And I thought it was so easy to digest. We could take it to school children and for them to have their thoughts
Mhm.
about these statistics and how they think we could solve the crisis which we're in,
Right.
the extinction of species and and the climate change and all these things.
Yeah, that was a paper by Bar Ilan and others in from Israel. I remember corresponding with him at that time, pointing out that even those statistics are skewed
Uh-huh.
because our farmed animals, they eat way more than their weight alone would indicate. Even though they weigh 60% of the total biomass, they're all very young animals. They're a very unusual mix of very young animals because they get killed as soon as they grow up, before they even finish growing up. So they're mostly babies. And so they eat almost double their weight. See, if you look at the food distribution and how food is being distributed, it's more like 18% for humans, 80% for farmed animals, and 2% for wild mammals.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, that's another another project.
Yes. I remember sending him that, and he said, "Yeah, and we do the best we can with statistics." Um, but yeah, but the message should get through, and the message should get through that how would you solve this problem? The answer is just obvious. It's
Well,
just,
this was the idea. The answer's obvious, so we're asking a question and sort of giving the answer in the question.
right.
And so we've had 200 school children enter the competition,
Wonderful.
which has been great. And the fact that it's gone into schools. A vegan organisation having a competition into schools, and for children to be looking at our website and to be looking at alternative ideas. And all the ideas that we come up with are all very positive. It's about how to create a better world where we can have just the fundamental things in life, clean rivers, clean oceans, fresh air, and how do we go about creating these things. And the road that we're going down, the road which we're on with the climate, I mean, it's been such a ridiculous situation. We've had a climate conference at COP26, and everyone was talking about climate and how we can solve the problems, although the conference never talked about animal agriculture. And now the conference over, everyone's back talking about COVID. And the sad thing is that they're not linking the two together and going, this is a consequence of the way we're treating the planet. And this is the disaster that we're in. We've got the people that are making the decisions about the planet, and the media, which gives the news out to people, if it isn't really doing justice to the situation. And we've really got to start connecting the dots, and it's not complicated, as any intelligent person can see. And maybe getting school children as early age as possible engaged in these topics, and so we got a future generation that's got some common sense. I think is really important.
Yeah. I mean, it is common sense, right? It is ultimately just simple stuff that's staring us in the face, saying, "Are you going to acknowledge this or not?" Um, Tammy is asking, "Can you bring this to Canada, the school project to Canada, or
Of
is it
course
too
we
late?"
can. I mean, we when we did the school project, we were lucky, so we got a little bit of support. So we did a big mail out. So we mailed out to 40,000. Well, I think it was to 30,000 schools, but to actually 40,000 heads of department through a mailing company. There's a company called Sprint Media, and they specialize with schools. And we did a 3-phase email campaigns. We sent one out in the before the summer holidays, then one before in late August, and one in September. And like I said, we did 40,000 3-phase email campaigns, and we've got about 35 schools and about 200 children came back on it, which is, I mean 30 was my target, so we got over 30, but we had contacted a lot of schools. But this is the first year, and we've learned a lot of lessons about maybe how to run a competition. And initially the idea was for this competition to be worldwide, and for people to, because also the schools competition runs alongside our video competition, which is open to the general public. And the idea of the video competition was people to make a short video, again, communicating this message about, well, how do we save our wildlife? Because sometimes I think the emphasis is put a lot on, we got too many cows, what's happening to the animals. It all becomes the farm focus,
Right.
rather than, well, who's the victims? Let's look at the victims, and the victims are all the things which everybody loves. Everybody loves wildlife. Everybody wants to save our wildlife. And yeah, so the original idea was for it to be a worldwide competition with loads of entries coming in. So maybe next year, maybe for COP 2027, we could all get together around the world and have these competitions in our own countries and all join together and get our children engaged, because they're the teachers. The parents listen to the children, whereas they might not listen to people like me.
Yeah, you're so right about that. People do listen to children better than they listen to us adults. But the message is simple. And I know that you were at COP26 and you had a trike. So did you reach a lot of people with that message?
I was a little bit. I mean, the trike was another. I seem to have these crazy ideas, and then
Right.
so I do have a trike already. And then I was talking to one of the Zaina, who you know, and
Hmm.
we were talking about ideas for the COP26, and somehow this TV. I'm not quite sure how it came up, but suddenly how it did come up, and I said, "All right, I've got a trike," and anyhow, we ended up building this crazy thing, which was all weatherproof and everything. And we took it up there and went on the Greta Thunberg demo and the main demonstrations with the trike. And I was a bit disappointed actually, particularly with people on the protests, was that a lot of them weren't vegan, and
Mm.
and they didn't really see. And I was like talking to them, they didn't seem to think it was important. Hadn't really sort of somehow, and it was only when I spoke to them, then they went, "Oh well, oh sorry, maybe I should be vegan." But it was like and it was, and like listening to Greta Thunberg's talk, and she didn't mention animal agriculture. I know that Greta's, she's a brilliant spokesperson, and she's a
Hmm.
vegan, and a wonderful person, but she hadn't mentioned it. And this omission was a big thing for me, that and it
Hmm.
was a big thing that for her not to, that we need our spokespeople, and the Friends of the Earth organized the demonstration on the Saturday, and as far as I'm aware, they weren't engaging with animal agriculture,
Right.
and I think this is one of the lessons that I've learned, is that somehow we've got to work out how we engage with all these groups, that this is an important thing. I mean, I think since the Cowspiracy documentary, Greenpeace have started talking a lot more about animal agriculture. And
Hmm.
I've been reading some of their stuff more recently, and they're actually engaging with it, whereas before they were hiding from it. And I think, it's really important that we really, all our colleagues in trying to solve these crises, engage with this fundamental part of being an environmentalist. I mean, people say that, well, you can't be a meat eating environmentalist.
Right.
Uh, I mean, can you be an animal eating animal lover? Well, a lot of people claim they are. I mean, this is the world we live in, where I'm an animal lover. I love animals. People would walk along the street and they would see a pigeon or a squirrel, that is injured, and they would do something about it. Whereas if a dog or a cat saw a injured pigeon or squirrel, they would eat it. They're the
Hmm.
meat eaters.
Right.
We're naturally compassionate. We're naturally compassionate beings, and it's something I don't myself. I can't quite understand why people are so disconnected from their natural compassion. I mean, a lot of people are a lot more compassionate than me and a lot more loving,
Hmm.
but somehow when it comes to eating animals, there seems to be some sort of disconnect. I don't understand it. Maybe you understand it more than I do.
I mean, I don't understand it either. We are all trying to grasp at this and figure out how to solve this problem, but we seem to have some kind of underlying um, social agreement, social contract, not to talk about it, not to talk about the cow in the room. You know, it's uh, it, everyone sort of skirts around this issue. As you pointed out, even Greta Thunberg, she's vegan, but she doesn't talk about it. And I say, if you don't talk about it, then you're not serving, the purpose of spreading the word, right? So you're basically proving to everyone that you don't have integrity. And I think that's the problem, right? We need to have. I say that climate change can be solved if people just have integrity.
Well, indeed. I mean, sometimes I think the way that things, it's like there's coronavirus, there's climate change, and there's species extinction, and there's river pollution and sea pollution, and sometimes there's how somehow they're all separate things.
Mm.
And I think climate change sometimes it's confusing for people. People think you're talking about the climate, whereas the real issues is the state of our trees and our rivers and our oceans, and
Right.
and what's happening to the wildlife. And And sometimes I think language is it can be quite a key to the way we communicate with each other.
Mhm.
And I think because we get lured into, it's like the 15% of emissions from animal agriculture. Everyone agrees to that because that's sort of that was done by the authorities, and the authorities have created this language of climate change. And maybe we sometimes I think the language, it gets in the way of people solving it, because we had it was snowing yesterday, and it was sunny today. It's like, and I think that's what a lot of people think. But I don't know how easy that's to do, how easy that is.
Yeah, it's connecting it all together and saying that there is, I mean, it's ultimately it's our way of life that's driving all this. And the tacit agreement not to talk about certain things, that's driving this. Yeah. And that tacit agreement is what you're trying to overcome, saying, no, no, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about everything. We need to put everything on the table, including colonialism, including capitalism. Everything should be on the table, right? So I say the era of colonialism is over. And we need to acknowledge that. And this is why when they said they're going to continue deforestation for another 9 years, well, that's saying we're going to continue decolonization for another 9 years, because that's what deforestation is. You know, you're going to some indigenous community and saying, get out of the way because we need this land for us to grow more cows.
And that's why the vegan thing is such an important thing. It's the one thing people have some power over. We,
Mm-hmm.
we we don't have power over whether they chop the trees down tomorrow, but we have power over what we consume. And as a consumer, we have powers. And I think alongside that, having a vision of the world that we want, which I think everyone does have. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to have nice holidays and nice places to go and a nice place to live. And it's fundamentally, how do we achieve that? And I think that's, to me, that's why the vegan organic network or similar groups, growing veganically, means that we can have a world where our food isn't impacting our environment. We can have good, healthy, nutritious food which doesn't pollute the rivers, which doesn't pollute the oceans, which doesn't give off fumes into the atmosphere. And we can have it's a mad situation. It's all there. We've got the solutions in front of us, but people, we can't wait for our leaders to lead us. Unfortunately, it needs to be people led. And the sad thing is that the age that we live in is the most sophisticated brainwashing going on than ever's existing. Young children, have a electronic device with adverts appearing on it from day dot if the parents let them have it, and that's the majority of young children. So I find it quite. I mean, the thing is, in my opinion, that this whole thing could be turned. The fact that we have these devices and these ways of communicating, we could use these exact same ways of communicating to empower people, to teach people, for people to have a positive message and a positive outlook. So it could all be used. The same technology could all be used for good, rather than teaching people how to be consumers, which seems to be the narrative at the moment. And I'm not quite sure how you get away from that. I'm not quite sure, apart from just carrying on trying to communicate your message, going into schools, going on demonstrations, talking to people.
Right. Well, this is where systems thinking comes in, right? This is what systems engineers do. I mean, how do you do this? How do you create a new system where you lead your ordinary lives and the planet thrives? That's a different system. Because right now we have a system where you lead your ordinary lives and the planet dies, and the climate is heated up. So I say that we have been in a phase where we were heating up the climate. Okay, and that's the system we created. And now we have to get to a system where we are cooling the climate, and we better do that quickly, otherwise we're all going to die. You know, so so that's systems engineering 101. That's what we do. And this is why I was asking questions within COP as to where are the systems engineers, other than sitting in press conferences in the NGO pavilion. There don't seem to be anyone with systems engineering background doing the negotiations, talking about solutions. And it's like asking politicians and lawyers to build the Apollo mission to Mars, or
Indeed.
and I assure you, it will never even get off the ground if you ask lawyers and politicians to build that. So because you need engineering, right, to do that. So it is. There has to be some engineering um, expertise at the table for us to really solve problems. Yeah.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah. But we are talking among ourselves about this. Yeah. But it begins by acknowledging the cow in the room, and addressing the cow in the room. And I say that you can either be the courageous in the room or the cowards in the room. It's one or the other. Um, the courageous ones are the ones who address the cow in the room. The cowards ignore it.
They ignore it at all our expenses, and this is the sad thing: is they're putting. I mean, I was when I was at the COP26, and I was in the green zone. It was it was a scientist came up to me, and it was sort of interested. He goes, "Oh, I'm vegetarian," and then he was sort of talking about whether we should be eating cheese, whether it's difficult for him to give up cheese and things like this. And I said, well, you seem to be missing the whole point. And this was like a government scientist. I asked him if I could take a picture of him, but he said, no, I couldn't take a picture because he might get into trouble. But these are the intelligent people, and they're talking, the sort of the banter which they talk about is almost like playground banter. The arguments and the things that they were coming up with is sort of just sort of quite few. So I was talking about honey and cheese, and rather than going, well, how do we solve the problem? He agreed that animal agriculture was a big problem, and he doesn't eat a lot. But it's all this thing that I don't do a lot. It's just like, well, it's a problem. Stop it. That's it.
Right.
And we're behaving like either addicts or small children. It's like either spoiled children or people with addictive personalities. And I think it's a mixture of the two. We've grown up to be, and we've got different parts of the world, haven't we? We've got one part of the world where 1 in 10 people are going hungry every day. People trying to flee war-torn situations and fleeing for their lives. And then you got another part of the world where people are acting like spoiled children without any consideration. Oh, we don't want them coming to our country and messing up for all us. And the only reason we're rich is because we plundered the whole of the rest of the planet. Right. It's this, and I think also we live in a collective trauma where we are even in the West where we are relatively well off, like here in the UK, rents are really high, house prices are really high, and people, families are having to have 2 jobs, having to work really hard just to pay the bills and to get by, and they don't have time to think, and they want the leaders to make the decisions for them. There are some people that do have more time, but we are a lot better off than a lot of other countries, but still there is a sort of controlling people working a lot just to survive and without time to think. And I think this is half the problem, really. Certainly in the UK, where the cost of living is very high.
Do you think that's by design?
Oh, certainly it was by design. Back in the 1980s, we had someone called Margaret Thatcher came in, and we had a housing system where we had thousands of council houses. So there was a whole infrastructure of thousands of council houses where everyone could get cheap housing. And then she decided to sell off all this housing, so the people that lived in it could buy the houses at discount rate. But then that housing disappeared. And as a consequence of that, house prices have gone up. If you bought a house, say for £20,000 20 years ago, that house is now worth £400,000, and wages haven't gone up proportionally. So it's if you're on that property ladder, you're okay. But for young people moving in, they've got to work harder and harder to get onto that first housing ladder. So yeah, it's definitely by design. It's definitely by design. And then also the thing with, I think people don't understand, like in this country, they deliberately have we deliberately have a housing shortage. But the actual concreted area in the UK is less than 5%. The rest of the land is non-concrete. It is countryside, and having the animals shows that the land is being used. And I think this is one reason for having animals on the land, is to keep the people off the land, is to keep control over the land. Because as soon as you start taking animals, you took all the animals off the land, the land becomes wild. And you see these areas where suddenly it all becomes forest and stuff. People can disappear. You can build it. If you've got a forest, you can build a house in the middle of the forest and no one can see you. Whereas if you've got a blank field, it's very easy to control. You go, oh, look, there's somebody on my field, half a mile away. You can see them. Oh, they're trespassing. But as soon as there's trees, people and animals can all disappear. And it is all controlling. It is all controlling. And that's the sad thing, and it's a very few percent, the people that own the land is a very small percentage of the population, 1 or 2% of the people. And a lot of them half the land is inherited wealth and the other half is owned by, big businesses and rich people. So, yeah, it's all fixed. It's all rigged. We need a revolution.
Right. Yes. I mean, basically, the system has become unsustainable now, right? So it's reached this level of inequality that it cannot continue like this, because it's, the end game. The end game is death and extinction. You see that, right? And so when you know that that's where it's headed, we have a responsibility to figure out what is this alternate system that we need to be creating, right? And that's where I think the kind of work that you do, the Vegan Organic Network, is important, because it says there is another way to grow our food. There's another way to live without poisoning everything, without pouring all this explosives on land to grow more food, which is really what nitrogen phosphorus is. NPK is explosives. Yeah. So
yeah, indeed. Yeah. Yeah, we can do it, and we are doing it. We're trying in our little ways. And I think that's why it's important for vegans to recognize, like on our website, we've got a petition which we're saying, because at the moment, if you go into a supermarket, you can either see that food is labeled as it's labeled as organic, or it's conventional, means it's grown with chemicals and pesticides. But we're petitioning for a label to say whether it's been grown with animal byproducts, whether it's been grown with dead animals. So if people would like to sign that petition, that sort of moves the whole issue forward. And I think it's the awareness. And I mean, the veganic food, I think the thing that's really important is for people to say that they want veganic food. We've got loads of vegan companies. We've got billion-dollar vegan companies. Why aren't any of them? I mean, there are some. I mean, I must say, there's 1 Degree in Canada, and they've actually got veganic products where you can actually buy cereal which has veganic on the label, and they've got different products. And Biocyclic have got different beans and things, which means it's guaranteed as being veganic. But I can't go into my local supermarket where they've got a dozen different types of milk, and I can't choose a veganic one. I can't go, oh well, this milk is grown veganically, and we should be putting pressure on these big companies like there's the Impossible Burger. Can you have the Impossible veganic burger? Come on, let's move it on a bit. This Impossible wasn't not such a big deal, you know. And I think once we can get one or two of the big companies like Oatly to actually go, we've got a veganic product, then the other company, the consumers wake up, the other companies wake up, and they can really move the veganic movement forward in a big way, which is essential. We're vegans, you know. We want our food to be grown cruelty free. It's fundamental, really. But it's like I say, it's not as easy as going vegan, because we can't, unless we grow it ourselves or we can find the products, we can't just go out and buy it. So yeah, sign the petition, please. Talk to your friends. Everyone, when we do events and people come to our stall, we go to a lot of vegan events, and they come to our stall, and we start explaining about organic food and other food, and the vegans are really gobsmacked. They go, what? Oh no! They don't know what to do. It's like, oh, what do I do? And it's like, support us, you know, support us on our mission. You know, support us supporting the farmers, and let's make it grow. Yeah.
Do you have a program to help farmers transition to veganic?
Yeah, we do. We have we support. I mean, there was a new farm in Cornwall, and we just recently bought them a polytunnel. And there's different courses. There's because we do some online shows. We do the Veganic Gardeners Question Time. We do another show which is called Farming for a Future, and so we had the Farming Future. We're inviting farmers to come on and ask questions, and we had a beef farmer come onto the show and said, "Well, how can I stop being a beef farm?" And now this is about a year ago now, and now a year later, he's transitioning to phase out. He's already got rid of his dairy herd, and now he's getting rid of his beef stock as well. But it's going to be a transition period. For him, so he's got 320 acres, and we're supporting him to transition from beef farming. So yeah, there's lots of organisations and individuals. There's the Farmers for Stock-Free Farming and Biocyclic and the other networks. Yeah, we all want to support farmers, and the more animal farmers. I mean, the problem with a lot of the animal farming is that people get subsidies for animal farming, but they won't get subsidies to grow trees and nuts and things like that. So, if you're a business and you can go, well, if I have a load of sheep on the side of a hill, which is destroying the hill so nothing can grow, I get actually paid to have the sheep there. Or I can try to grow something which I'm not guaranteed to sell. So, the authorities don't, the meat and milk marketing have such amazing power. I mean, for such a destructive industry, for them to be so powerful is mind-boggling, really.
Well, that's the colonial system. That's how we colonize the whole world, right? So this is why they are powerful, because without them, colonization will stop.
Yeah, maybe it all started with when we started caging animals. Maybe that's when the whole colonization started. It's when someone goes, well, this is my animal and I'm going to put a fence around it.
Right.
And I'm going to breed it. And then the whole relationship with other people and with women and men. Yes, the animal thing is so fundamental that I find it difficult why people don't get it. I think it's a mental. I think as human beings, I think we have the ability, because I think there are lots of tragedies happening in the world every day, and I think if we didn't have the ability to block things out, we would go mad. We'd be crying every day. But we have this ability to block things out, and I think as soon as we go, that's on the block list, it's just like, oh, that's on the block list, and as soon as it comes up, your mind doesn't see it. And our job is to go, well, how do you get through the block?
Yeah.
can you get around that block? And we try all these different tricks and things to sort of get through that. But I think once we get us to a certain critical mass of people, and I think it is getting more and more, but whether it's going to be in time is another thing.
Right.
You know, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the statistics you cite with the biomass of mammals, if we continue down that path, we have another 5 years left before the 4% becomes close to zero.
Oh, scary,
Yeah, this
scary
is why
stuff.
I think it's important that we all step up and voice as loudly as possible. Because, I had a friend um, who had trouble with his weight. Okay, so he was, as long as I've known him, he had been overweight and he had been trying, he had been dieting, doing all kinds of things. And then I didn't see him for a few years. Then I saw him and he was lean and healthy. And I asked him, Ken, how did you do this? This is amazing, right? I mean, and he said, well, I kept going to doctors who would tell me, eat a little bit less of this, eat a little bit less of that. And I never changed. Then I went to a doctor who told me, eat nothing, eat zero. Okay. I'm going to do a blood test on you now and come back in a week and I'll do another blood test on you. And then we'll decide what you're going to eat next. So, and he told him, just drink orange juice for 1 week and come back. And so that started his whole, juice fasting and his process of reimagining his diet. Okay. And the doctor did that for him. And so now he's grateful to that doctor for having saved his life, because his cholesterol is going through the roof. I mean, everything was going through the roof. He could see the trend, right, where he was going. We are facing the same situation as a species. This is why I say going vegan is the least you can do. I mean, because it'll get to a point where you cannot eat anything. Okay, so we better do that now and sort out these problems. Have the courage to face up to the cow in the room and address the cow in the room.
Indeed, indeed. We all need to address the cow in the room. Yep.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Dan. And
Oh, I'd just like to say before I go,
yeah, sure.
on the 9th of December, we have our awards evening where we're going to be having awards for the best short video. The videos are like a minute long. And also we're going to be awarding and showing the entries from the school children. If people would like to join us, if they go onto our website, there's a link there. If you go onto veganorganic.net, there's a link there to get a free ticket for the awards evening. And also they can vote on the video which they think is the best video and the video which they think should win the award. So you can influence who's going to be the best video and who's going to win the prize. So yeah, you're all welcome. And yeah, and any more information about the Vegan Organic Network is on our website. So yeah, thank you, Salesh. Thank you.
I'm going to say get free ticket for the award ceremony on December 9th. Just go to veganorganic.net. Yeah?
Yeah, sounds good.
So that's beautiful. Thank you very much for this
Thank you,
wonderful
Salesh.
conversation. And it's, as always, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Excellent. Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.